Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We're back on the dev server for Dance of Dragons, and this time we're having a look at La Combattante. La Combattante is the second combatant that we actually have in the game, which is kind of surprising. You can see here we have another one, which is a hunt class, which was used by the Free French during the Second World War. So you can literally run La Combattante at 4.0 alongside the other 4.0 La Combattante. And the only difference is, of course, which tech tree they're in. The Combattante is at the end of the Coastal Fleet tech tree for France, which right now is pretty anemic, so maybe you'll get some friends sooner rather than later. But the interesting thing about this vehicle is, of course, the armament on it. Everything else about it is pretty standard. You know, the armor values that it only has 8mm for the hull, only has 28 crew, so this thing's just going to get brapped very aggressively by many other coastal machines. But the key to it is, first of all, the two 40mm Bofors L60s, which are nice. A lot of vehicles are running around with L70s of this BR, though, so not exactly fantastic. And the other part is this weird robotic Wally-looking thing that is in the middle. So what this is a SS-11 launcher. Now, there's been a few people who've talked about how on the Combattante they tested the SS-11 and they also tested the SS-12, so maybe it'll get an upgrade in the future, but right now it uses the SS-11 missile. You can actually find the statistics on this missile on many different helicopters which are in the game. Stuff such as the Alouette, for example, for the Germans, has access to the AS-11, which is very similar. And then also you have the SS-11, which is even in the French tech tree for ground. One of the starter premiums that French got was the AMX-13 SS-11, and this one has the missile right here. So very similar to other ones that are around, but it does show another naval ship with anti-ship missiles, or anti-anything missiles, really. And there's a few of these in the game now. You obviously have the Bravey, which has the anti-air missiles. You have the Dougie, or the Douglas, which has the anti-air ones, and then the Sayeta. And now you have this as well, the Combattante with it. So they're slowly but surely adding in more of these machines with the missiles, which is cool to see. Now, if you've never used the SS-11 before, unfortunately, you can't actually see its statistics on this. But what it is a wire-guided missile, which has an okay range, I think around 3 kilometers in terms of naval, and at the same time can move around the air decently, just once again is tied to the wire-guided nature instead of laser-guided. If you've been playing a lot of ATGM vehicles in ground or even in air, you know the huge difference between wire-guided and laser-guided nowadays. Wire-guided are a lot more stiffer to chuck around the place, where with laser-guided stuff, it's a little bit easier. You also only get 4 of them, which isn't a ton. They do have decent explosive mass, though, and you can do quite a decent amount of damage to destroyers if you know where you're aiming. The other parts of the machine are pretty standard. You have the radio station in the front, then the bridge, fuel in below, and then also the engines. This vehicle is also not very fast, which is going to be another issue for it. So, once again, this vehicle, if you forget about the SS-11s, the main armament is weak for the BR. The armor is non-existent, the crew is non-existent, and the mobility is non-existent. So what we're going to do quickly is we're just going to compare this to other nations and what they have around this BR, which, as a person who's played a lot of Coastal, you'll see quite a lot. You have the Albatross and you have the Alano, which are two machines which are very powerful against the SS-11 launcher, because of the fact that the Combattante will only spawn maybe 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers away from them, so therefore the 40mm, this one has double the armament of the Combattante. For Japan, you have access to all of the weird frigates, and also, once again, another LCS that can tear it apart, but the frigates at least will spawn a little bit further. When you have a look at the British, they have the same thing. All of these vehicles will be able to just tear it apart. USSR, it is laughable that all of these vehicles are 4-3. The fact that the PR-206, which is insanely powerful, with its 2 dual sets of 30mm is 4.3, and this vehicle here is 4.0. Laughable that that is the case. But then also, even the PR204 is better than it. Then also the PR183 and the 201M. For Germany, they have, of course, the Jaguar at the same BR, which has the fast-firing 40mm, which will tear it apart. They also have the 206 to tear you apart too, and the Fail, which has the L70 Bofors. So all of these vehicles just have a better armament than you, and are faster, and usually more survivable. And then for America, for the high-tier coastal, they actually have a tough time, where they have a lot of rough vehicles too. But once again, many frigates and stuff that will just donk on the Combattante. So even though this thing has a missile on it, in every other area it struggles, and that is its problem, and that will be its problem going forward forever. It also does have two 12.7mm guns on it. You can see the 50 cals right here with gun shields, which is all well and good, but it's only two 12.7s, nothing to once again write home about. And the modifications give you artillery, which I suppose is nice, but a lot of these vehicles have access to artillery, and you can also change what you have in terms of the 40mm belt, which once again is kind of nice, so at least you have that. But as a crowning jewel of the tech tree, you don't even have camos on it yet. As a crowning jewel of the tech tree for France, for coastal, I feel like this vehicle could actually be really fun, especially because of the missiles. It gives you something different, but you will have to be in, you know, more open water to use it. One of the nice things about 4.0 is you have the opportunity to actually face quite a lot of early destroyers, and if you can get that SS-11 at their ammo and annihilating it, you can have a great time. But you only have 4 of them. So if you have a look at the 40s, of course the 40s are going to wreck, you know, anything that they face. It's just you find these 40s on 2.7 vehicles nowadays, and this one is obviously a lot higher. The maximum speed of this is too slow to deal with a lot of the enemies that it faces, and because of stuff like the PR206, because of stuff like the Jaguar, they have a very high fire rate, and you are going to die before you are actually able to get a missile off to hit them. And that is something that a lot of ATGM carriers in ground forces find, where once you fire the ATGM and if it hits, that's fantastic, but the reaction time that people have in order to be able to deal with the ATGM carrier is, you know, pretty good. So, and their round goes faster than yours, so you have to catch them out before they see you, and also at the same time you have to hit them before they start blasting you. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen in naval. Instead, what's going to happen in naval is you're going to fire this ATGM, and by the time it's even halfway there, because it's just not fast enough, your machine will be destroyed, because it has no armor, it has no crew, it has no nothing. So the only time to really use this thing is if you're firing it against stuff like destroyers, and there are also no other coastal machines about. And I don't know how you would get into that position, because the vehicle is just not fast enough to be able to even do that. So I don't know what's gonna happen in terms of that. You can see here, even hitting stuff like the magazine room, you won't, you know, always do a decent amount of damage. Sometimes I was able to do about 15% or 25% to a destroyer, which is great, but that basically means that it's going to take you 3 missiles in order to be able to kill it, which is not really going to work for the vehicle. And you've also got to remember test conditions. We're on the test drive map here. The test drive map does not have rough seas. A lot of the time, when you're actually playing War Thunder in naval, there's a lot of rough seas around for the coastal vehicles nowadays, because there's just more and more people who want to see rough seas and don't play coastal. So this one is just in a really, really tough position, and I feel like looking at it compared to a lot of the end-of-the-line stuff for other nations, yes, it has a cool gimmick, yes, it's interesting, and you will get some like kind of highlight reel hits on it, but every other factor about it is very rough, and I just feel bad for the vehicle. I'm hoping that it either gets down BR'd, maybe it could actually be able to spawn in like the destroyer spawn or something, so therefore you could actually use the missiles, or something like it faces more frigates, which, you know, for some reason can't see you. Maybe that's how this thing could work, but apart from that, it's just going to be really rough, which just sucks. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.